The Quran ties itself in a knot over the Injil. As we've seen in previous videos, it creates problems that Muslims cannot escape. Here's another one. Muslims often tell us that the Injil in Muhammad's time had been corrupted. It contains some of what Allah revealed to Jesus, but it also contains words that have been added later that aren't Allah's words. It's a mixture, part preserved and part added. But this doesn't make any sense of what the Quran tells us about the Injil.
This argument has already been refuted in our previous video, but I will do a quick summary. The Quran says that in the Injil we find that fighting will be allowed for the believers, but this is nowhere in the Gospel. There are also things that have been preserved, and these are verses that align with the Quran. There are things added as the Quran tells us the Jews and Christians change the scriptures.
Quran 1094 says, "If you, O Prophet, are in doubt about these stories that we have revealed to you, then ask those who read the scripture before you. The truth has certainly come to you from your Lord, so do not be one of those who doubt." This can't work. Let's imagine it. Suppose Muhammad goes to those who read the scripture before him. Muhammad finds that there's a difference between what has been revealed to him and what the scripture says. Perhaps Muhammad says that Allah has no son, but the scripture show Jesus repeatedly saying that he is the Son of God. Perhaps Muhammad says that Jesus did not die on a cross, but the scriptures show Jesus dying on a cross. Now what? If those who read the scripture before you are recounting truly preserved words of Allah, then Muhammad has to accept them. Muhammad just discovered that his revelations are lies. They didn't come from God.
First of all, the verse is an impossible conditional statement, which means it could have never occurred since the Prophet never doubted. Most tafsirs agree on this. Secondly, if you read the context, the verses before are talking about the Exodus. This means to ask about the stories specifically. Thirdly, it means to ask the converts. Al-Quturbi talks about Abdullah ibn Salam, a Jewish convert. In conclusion, the Quran asks the believers to ask the Jewish Christian converts to Islam if they have doubts in the stories in the Quran. Also notice how Testify twists the translation to his liking.
It says to Muhammad, if you have doubts about your revelation, the Quran, to talk to the people of the scripture. To talk to the people of the scripture. Those who read the scripture before you are recounting stories invented by some human and not sent by Allah, then Muhammad can reject them. He doesn't have to worry about it. He can still believe that he is a true prophet. But nobody knows which is which. Nobody knows which parts of the scriptures have been preserved and which haven't. So Muhammad doesn't know what to do. He can't follow this command. It makes no sense. Now you might be thinking, I know how to tell which is which. Compare it with the Quran. But that is the exact opposite of what the Quran says. It doesn't tell the people of the scripture, if you have doubts, ask Muhammad what the Quran says. It says to Muhammad, if you have doubts about your revelation, the Quran, to talk to the people of the scripture.
As I mentioned earlier, this verse refers to asking the converts about the stories in the Quran, so they realize the stories mentioned are also found in the previous books. It does not say to ask the people of the scripture. The Quran also tells us a way to distinguish between the original Injil and the corrupted parts. It says to use the Quran as a criterion